Now, we continue working with one of the core foundations of VBA, referring to cells and ranges in a worksheet. At this stage, the goal is not to perform calculations, but to clearly understand how VBA points to different parts of a sheet and how those references behave. To make this easier to follow, we use visible selection. This allows us to see exactly which cells and ranges VBA is working with at each step, which is especially helpful at the beginning of learning VBA. After starting the macro, we move to a worksheet called Select Activate. This worksheet contains a small table that we will use to demonstrate different ways of referring to cells and ranges. Once the worksheet is active, every selection we see on the screen happens within this sheet. The code first selects a small range of cells using the range object with a text-based address. When the range A1 to B2 is selected, we can clearly see how VBA refers to a specific block of cells by explicitly providing its address. Immediately after that, the same range is selected again, but this time by using the cells property. Instead of specifying the range as text, VBA defines it by pointing to the starting cell using row and column numbers, and then to the ending cell in the same way. Even though the syntax in the code looks different, the selection on the worksheet is exactly the same. Next, the code works with the currently active cell. It first refers to that single cell and then expands the selection to include the entire row where the active cell is located. After that, the selection is expanded again to include the entire column of the active cell. This makes it easy to see how VBA can move from one cell to larger structural parts of the worksheet. At the very end, the code selects the entire active area of data. By referring to the current region of the active cell, VBA selects the whole continuous block of data that forms the table. In practice, this means that the entire table is selected at once, without manually defining its range. To conclude, it is worth briefly reminding ourselves of the difference between select and activate, which was covered in the previous lesson. Select creates a visible selection of cells or ranges, making it easy to see what VBA is referring to. Activate only sets the focus on a single object and does not create a visible selection. In this lesson, we intentionally use select so that every reference is clear and easy to follow before moving on to more advanced techniques later in the course.